Hi, everyone. I'm Marc, one of the co-founders of Langfuse and CEO, and I'm super excited to be here, at least remotely, with you today at the first Langfuse meetup in Japan. First of all, I want to thank KDDI for hosting the event and everyone at Cloud Gao, and especially Kamon-san for organizing the event. We are super excited and impressed to see how Langfuse has grown internationally. And I mean, a lot of like the Japanese growth has come via working with Kamon-san, but also, I mean, there are like things happening in the community, as for example, like this book about how Langfuse actually works in Japanese by Taisuke, Shuhei, Yoshitaka, and Sakai, where we're just blown away to see it. I want to take the time that I got here to like basically show you a bit of what happened at Langfuse over the last 2 years, where the project stands today in terms of traction, which companies use it, and then also generally revisit basically the scope and value that Langfuse really has with its current scope, and giving you like an outlook on what's happening with the project in the future, but also looking to the like recent past of what has changed recently, including, for example, the version 3 release. It's really increased and boosted scalability of the platform. There have been many small changes to prompt management, cost tracking, and some more enterprise-geared optimizations to integrate. And yeah, I would love to use the session to go through these items one by one. And let's start with like a current snapshot of basically what Langfuse is today. Generally, with Langfuse, we focus on all of the workflow steps that teams need to build really successful like LLM applications, because building them has unique challenges. It's like cross-functional teams building use cases where users do all sorts of things, where it's like an application level problem to actually solve them, and where you need to collaborate with domain experts to then iterate on prompts, understand what works, and use all sorts of evaluation strategies to debug and understand how to improve the application. So overall, there's like a very involved workflow, and we aim to really build the LM engineering platform that solves these mostly end-to-end, and then still leaves room for customization via the APIs. As of today, the GitHub stars round to like 8,000. We have been basically awarded by Product Hunt a couple of times. For example, the Golden Kitty Awards and One Product of the Day. And today used by some of the best brands in the market globally, building LLM-based applications, as for example, Posttalk, Samsara, Twilio, Khan Academy, all of which have very like mature and large use cases in production, and they rely on Langfuse as basically a base to scale them and move fast. This also reflects in these metrics, as like SDKs are installed over 3 million times each month, and there are like almost 3 million Docker pulls of the like self-hostable images, where self-hosting is really important to Langfuse. If you aren't a Langfuse user yet and are still at this meetup, then welcome. You've great to have you here. If you ever want like a very comprehensive demo of the application, I can really recommend this 10-minute video. So in December, we finally released this huge upgrade to the overall platform of Langfuse version 3. This has been the biggest engineering project going into Langfuse today, and it's really targeted at many of the enterprise customers we work with, but also at some of the more scaled use cases that want like really fast analytics on top of their data, and then also all of the things that we will build in the future is dependent on a lot of these changes. So overall, when we zoom in here a little, we'll see that they say at the beginning of last year, Langfuse was a very simple application, and at the end, it's a very mature application that scales, that's optimized. And there are like a couple of things we pushed when making this project that I would love to highlight. So basically here in the self-host documentation, you also find these optimizations that happened. For example, with the version 3 upgrade, all of the traces are now queued before they are ingested, which really drives a ton of the scalability of the platform. All of the like API keys and credentials are cached which makes API calls way faster. If you use Langfuse for prompt management, all of this is cached now as well on multiple levels, which really makes the applications that rely on prompt management that much more reliable, because if Langfuse is tends to be way faster, but also if Langfuse might be slow, still the application has a local copy of the prompt and will respond right away. Then a lot of the dashboards are now really fast. We can support multimodal traces. Events are recoverable if the service goes down. And basically the upgrade experience when switching between versions is greatly improved, as now there's background migrations happening. All of this is mostly relevant if you run Langfuse on your own infrastructure. If you rely on our cloud service, you will probably just notice that a lot of the features now are faster. As I know that many teams self-host Langfuse, I wanted to give you a brief deep dive into this topic. If you ever have any questions on this, feel free to reach out to us, especially via GitHub, because there we are happy to help to answer questions when it comes to running Langfuse on your own infrastructure. In addition, when basically going back, there have been some recent changes that are really exciting. So for example, just yesterday, we released tracking, basically comparison views where you can track changes between different prompt versions. So if you're iterating a lot on prompts, you'll now see basically this track changes before you make a change. Or when browsing prompt versions, you can diff two different versions to understand what has really changed. In the Enterprise Edition, you'll now have audit logs, which helps to track what people do in the UI and help with compliance. And we released heavily improved cost tracking, as models improve a lot. And with this improved cost tracking, you can now capture all the multimodal tokens, cache tokens. So this was just a very brief highlight of what has changed recently. So let's jump to the roadmap, because we 2 weeks ago released this updated roadmap, which highlights what we'll build in the first quarter and also forward-looking over the next year, where right now in January and February, we focus on a lot of small improvements that have a lot of impact on many users. This impacts tracing, prompt management, dashboards. So they're just after launching this big upgrade to the platform, there have been many requests by different teams using Langfuse, where we now double down on fulfilling these wishes. So if there's something where you feel you really want this, let us know, and I'm happy to consider prioritizing it. This is a very short term, and then medium term, there are a couple of big initiatives that we'll push. One is more agent observability. So if your application is more involved and more agentic, then there are some observability needs that arise, and we will double down on visualization, making traces really useful, and making Langfuse the preferred solution when you develop these agents. Then there are some core enhancements to the core tracing, as in native support for environments, more support for real-time LLMs, so especially when they are happening via sockets, and support for OpenTelemetry. So if you have an OpenTelemetry landscape already within your organization or are not on Python or JavaScript, instrumentation support will be greatly improved by this OpenTelemetry-based collector that we will release. Then prompt management has been wildly successful since we released it 1 year ago, and there are now some core improvements that are planned. The diff view was just released. We will add more RBAC controls to make it safer to use prompt management in larger teams. There's more LLM-assisted prompt engineering. We want to make prompts composable so you can reuse some components in other prompts, organize prompts in folders, have better support for tool calls, and have better support for placeholders and chat messages. These are very small improvements, but it shows all of the performance related topics are really solved already. And now we want to dive deeper on what creates more value in prompt management for teams. Next, evaluation. Currently, Langfuse does LLM as a judge evaluations in the Pro and Enterprise tier when self-hosting or on all cloud tiers. And we want to dive deeper on helping teams accelerate the evaluation workflows. So non-LLM evaluators as classifiers, custom code, regex, or evals on multiple steps within the same trace, helping compare and correlate different evaluation metrics to understand whether they actually work, and evaluating sessions, so full conversations instead single messages. So these are some of the very core changes to evals that are happening. Again, one of the very core pillars of what Langfuse does. So evaluation, prompt management, tracing. These three, we'll double down on each of them. And if you have requests or ideas of what could be better, please let me know. Then when we talk about dashboards, we want to make it more useful when you have like hundreds of millions of traces to really aggregate and learn how you can improve the application when you have a lot of traffic. So we'll ship full text search to be able to index and query the traces more easily and help with more self-serve configurable dashboards. So you can create your own drill downs or like pivot tables or like time series charts with some advanced filters. So this is definitely coming and something that will solve for many analytics needs when you want to learn what's working in production. As we work with many platform teams or teams that extend Langfuse via its APIs, basically the data platform and API layer is really important. So we're looking into webhooks, batch exports, more rule-based routing between different features, and want to double down on this as well. Lastly, basically some core UI, UX, and onboarding topics to just make it easier to get started when using Langfuse. Kamon asked me to like dive deeper on two topics specifically, and let's start with the first one, which is basically using ClickHouse as part of the deployment stack when running Langfuse self-hosted in version 3. This is again the Langfuse version 3 architecture where ClickHouse stores all of the core observability data. So it's really key to make Langfuse performant, highly available, and all of the analytical needs scalable. It's a very popular open source data warehouse, so you can host on any cloud vendor. So we have summarized some of these thoughts here in the ClickHouse section and the infrastructure menu. So basically here, there are three main options, where one is you can basically use a fully managed ClickHouse Cloud deployment via AWS, Azure, or Google Marketplace, which can then be VPC peered, and thereby you have a fully managed service that you don't need to basically operate yourself. Second, many of our users use ClickHouse and Kubernetes via like a Helm chart, where we've heard about good experiences with the Bitnami Helm chart, and we have summarized some key configuration items here on this page. And additionally, in lower scale deployments, you can run ClickHouse via Docker on a single instance. Overall, there are like multiple different options. If you're looking for like a fully managed experience, we can recommend using ClickHouse Cloud. The second topic Kamon asked to dive deeper on is the support for OpenTelemetry. We have this basically publicly facing thread that tracks support for this and have been part of a couple of OpenTelemetry working groups defining the standards and are looking into basically launching an OpenTelemetry collector for LLM applications in the first quarter, most likely way faster. Because there's like some upside in adding OpenTelemetry support, but there are also some risks. Maybe let's start with the risks. So we haven't launched OpenTelemetry support just yet, because in the end, the standards and semantics are still changing rapidly, and like the LLM space is developing rapidly. So for example, we have cache tokens now. And if Langfuse users ask for native support in Langfuse, in our current instrumentations that we own and operate, I mean, they are open source, but we have full rights of changing them. We can quickly add support across the whole stack of the application, the API, the SDKs, instrumentation, the dashboards. We can quickly add like end-to-end support. Whereas when we rely on OpenTelemetry, it basically requires that the semantical standards are upgraded to then support how cache tokens should be reflected correctly. And thereby, in the past, we haven't felt that OpenTelemetry is ready for LLM observability just yet, but this has changed a lot over the recent months, and now there are some reference instrumentations for some LLM packages that exist within OpenTelemetry, and this makes it very excited to like build a collector to improve compatibility, and we will release an initial version 1 collector very soon. Okay, that's it for my short little deep dive. Thanks again, everyone, for having me, even if I'm just here remotely. And I hope this outlook on what Langfuse does, the roadmap, what has happened recently, and some deep dives into some topics that might be of particular interest have been helpful. As mentioned earlier, if you are not a huge Langfuse user yet, I would really recommend to watch this 10-minute walkthrough that highlights all of the latest capabilities in a digestible way. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.